Good afternoon, welcome to the June 20th, 2017 EDIC meeting. Any changes to previous minutes or suggestions, or are they good?
Good. I propose that we approve the minutes from May 16th. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Very good. We don't have any public speakers. Jamie?
Still, we don't have a full report, it's just, more of the zoning from the planning board, the seasonal cottage, zoning. They're still discussing medical marijuana and, just ongoing meetings tonight, if anyone is.
Yeah, the seasonal ones, yeah.
Well, I thought I saw something come over, that the, actually, it was, that the seasonal cottage thing wasn't gonna be on the agenda tonight. It was a mistake, and it's gonna be
Really?
July 18th.
Huh,
No, it's on the agenda.
yeah, because I got an email saying that somebody was trying to get me to come.
It's on the agenda because it was,
Someone on Facebook trying to
Well,
decrease
it was
the size of the
Maybe.
crowd.
I think the usual suspects were still against it.
unless, just put that out. Last week, the city council plan subcommittee met, but it was on, while it was on their agenda, they were not discussing it. And the meeting was tonight that they're discussing, so still that joint planning board, city council plan subcommittee.
Well,
If you find it,
but irrespective of that, the logistics, what's the flavor, how's it going?
I mean, I think there was a lot of people who came to the last meeting and they seemed like, there's question about whether or not this, I mean, the ordinance that's going forward is about the zones, the R35, R40, R80, adding a new use that allows people to have this type of use on their property if they want it. There seems to be a lot of people who are neighbors of the former Touchstone Farm.
Yeah.
Who are showing up that this is somehow a project for that farm, but it is not a project, it's
Citywide.
It's zoning, that if anyone in the
Yeah.
city wants to, who has 5 acres or more, this zoning would apply to them if they want to utilize it.
It's a big chunk.
So I think there's some opposition to it because of what used to happen at Touchstone Farm or, things like.
Those people. They
Is
want
it in
those
the
people.
ordinance right now that it is allowed if it's a nonprofit?
Right now, a campground is allowed by nonprofit, but this is not a campground. Campgrounds would be RVs and tenting and things like this. This would be a cottage community, so it would be home, like,
Single unit,
single unit housing.
lodging dwellings.
Yeah, lodging, bathroom,
With their own-
maybe your kitchen or not.
But
Tied into septic, tied into town, to city water.
But not year round, right?
No, they're seasonal.
So
So,
they're-
Laurel
Yeah.
Park in Northampton
I'm
is
sorry, what?
years and years
Not
ago.
winterized.
not winterized.
Is that what
I'm
I
not,
don't know whether that's part of the,
Well, it has to be closed at some.
yeah, it has to be closed.
I'm not sure what the season is, and I don't know if you know, whether or not you would winterize it or not. See if you're gonna close all winter, that's sort of.
It's kind of akin to the, what the Methodist community, in Oak Bluff and
Yeah,
north of
campgrounds,
Northampton.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
Laurel
all
Park,
campground.
no, yeah, Laurel Park started out that way.
It
Yeah.
started
Right,
out that way.
started out that way.
Yeah.
I was
So
just
is it that
curious
kind
as
of
to the
thing?
flavor. I walked out one night and I saw some
Okay.
neighbors opposing.
Well, then
And I was
you're right.
wondering, you know, why they're opposing a general ordinance as opposed to, I understand.
So my apologies, it's not tonight, it's, no, you read that correct.
And this is the planning board, East Hampton Planning Department.
Yeah. Today's June 20th, so
Yep.
that's, no, that's definitely from us, I didn't know that that had been postponed till July 18th.
So what prevents What's the mechanism for preventing someone from living in one of these units year round?
It's a-
What prevents someone from living in one of these seasonal cottages year round? If they choose?
I mean, so it's, the process that's being proposed would be, it's a special permit to the planning board to get the use that's allowed. And then, like every other thing in our zoning, people do what they want when they want, and then.
Right.
when
Somebody
there's a-
enforces
and then-
it.
And when there's a complaint, there's an enforcement, that someone comes out and investigates enforcement. But with lodging anywhere in the state, people have to keep records of who's been there, how long they're there. And it's very clear that those records can be requested and inspected, so.
And are these multiple units that are governed by one body, by one, so if this was my property owner, thank you. Is there a property owner who's in charge of these multiple units?
There has to be a live on-site caretaker
Okay.
or property owner, so it's not dissimilar from a home occupation where you have to live and work at the property, or a bed and breakfast. It's just another way to increase lodging within the community, which we don't have any lodging options. And the economic sort of outlook is that we're never gonna get a large chain to build here because we're far enough off the interchanges of it, and that it's not gonna.
It's a giant portion of the city though.
Yeah, it is, but a lot.
R40 and R35.
Yeah, but a lot of that land is protected open space, or already developed in such a way that it's not 5 acres. We did an analysis, to my backyard to show which were the current properties in the city that are 5 acres or larger in those zones, and it's, I forget the total, but Jess has a map that shows, just maybe it's 100 properties.
We don't know at this point, we thought given the usage and
For the one that spurred it on, just out of curiosity, how many seasonal units would that 5 acres allow roughly?
There's no proposal, so, and there's gonna be site constraints that are unique to every property, and.
Yeah.
It's actually, David, on the city website, the verbiage proposed. It's
Yeah.
where it is at the moment.
Right, and my understanding is that there's no, the number of units is not being limited by any constraint of like this amount per acre. It's just what the site can hold with regard to the size of the units, taking into account setback requirements. There's buffering requirements that the new ordinance is proposing. And it's gonna be, they're small. So I don't think but there's no hard cap limit or some sort of tie to area.
But they have to be tapped into the sewer and water. Is that part of it or not?
They have to have septic,
That does something.
the sewer and water. So, if they're in a city, if they're in a part of the city that has town water or city water and city sewer, then yes, they would have to tie into it. But if they're parts of R35 that are on septic, and if that were the case, they'd have to be provided a septic system that was large enough to accommodate the visitors.
Backtrack, one thing, medical marijuana, is that being discussed tonight?
I don't know what else was on the agenda. I thought that was still under discussion. Well, do you still have that agenda item, agenda on?
Well, I have to put that in notes. I did so on the cottage zoning being in July, so I was gonna do this, but I don't do that.
I mean, it's still under discussion. And
Yeah.
I guess
That's the gist of it.
if you guys are interested, or it sounds like there's interest, I encourage you to go to the planning board meetings, follow them, and take a look at those agendas to make sure that you're actually going to the right meetings.
You good?
Yeah.
All right, we'll wait for Pascalina for item number 5. Now we'll go to item number 6, and I sent it out, but here's a hard copy of the draft, and I have an idea to make a change to it already. Then feel free to mark up the pen, whatever you want. I'm not. But I was thinking of, I left this very narrow, but I was thinking possibly also adding another proposal. Speaking with some other people within the city and within the city offices. You know, hurry scurry came up again, and so some people think that that first floor could be allowed. Some people feel first floor should be allowed possibly in new construction. So if you tore down hurry scurry, you're not touching an existing storefront, and because it's next to or adjacent to, though it's a mixed use building. Everyone thinks the brick building is all residence. There is an opposite. So I would be in favor myself right now adding some language saying that first floor residential could be allowed in new construction in the downtown business zone. I didn't make it clear on this, I realized later on, about the DB zone. And last thing I'll say regarding what I wrote and what I just mentioned is, you know, I guess we could go one of two paths. We could go, like I did, a little bit loose and see what happens in the public hearing process. You're allowed to, during that process, you know, the zoning can morph. I mean, it can't be radically, you know, turn into an R40 thing, but, you know, or we can be specific. If you really wanted to get down in detail, to dot our I's and cross our T's, and then argue the merits of a very tight idea, you know, that's up to you guys, or all of us. So, that's all I have to say on this.
I think, you know, we referenced hurry scurry as an example, but there's probably half a dozen sites in the downtown. I don't even begin to know, Jamie, where the zoning begins and ends and what it is, but all I'm talking, yeah, I'm not going to read that. All I'm talking about is, I think creating opportunities for people to live downtown is always a positive. The genesis for the current zoning we have was because of a rash of conversions that looked horrible. And I understand that, and that's why I think if there was a language that limited first floor housing to new construction only, it would solve the problem of ugly looking conversions, someone converting a storefront, because once you get into whatever plans are brought forward for housing development downtown on the first floor, there's controls in place to control what that looks like, I assume.
Not really.
No, there's not. No. We don't have any sort of design review board. The only place that design review boards actually have any teeth are historic districts, and our historic district doesn't have any design guidelines.
Well, do you think that a property owner in the downtown business district wants to build something ugly?
It's been done before.
Maybe not know. Maybe not know what's up here, what's not.
Well, that's subjective.
Well, I think, you know, when those conversions happen, the appearance was an issue, but I think the use was the bigger issue. You know, it was certainly the path of least resistance. Just change it quickly, and of course, you know, they went with a inexpensive model, Texture 111, minimum, whatever, you know, minimum standards, and you know, they met the code, but that was it.
Not really. Actually, the 2111 meeting masonry, and that's why it's all rotting around the bottom. It's not affected by code, it never has been.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, yeah, and, but anyway, those happened.
So there again, though,
There's only one left.
On Cottage Street.
On Cottage Street where the, where the color bar is.
Yep.
Right now, it's a commercial unit. Next to it, there's a residential unit, and then I think, I forget the name of her shop, there's another shop.
Tree, the A tree.
Right,
Olive tree, yeah.
right. There was 3 residences, 2 have been converted back to commercial. Yeah, and, they were done in the mid-70s, just quickly, and then, there was a fear that it might turn into a trend, and that's what, there's only 1996 was specific about that. But I don't think, I don't think we have to worry about looks, because looks are largely unenforceable the way the zoning is presently written. It's the use, but that was an existing building, and I think it's not what anyone really wanted when we talk about all this stuff. And we don't want to repeat that. But, Hurry Screwy is an example that brought some of this discussion up. But, another example could be the former Knights of Columbus building behind, on the corner, off of Chapman Street. It's 1 block behind Union Street and Chapman Street. Right now, it's a successful office building, but years ago, before it was sold, it had 2. The Knights of Columbus sold it, and then it was kind of sitting, or it was available for a while. Then a person bought it, and they made some offices out of it. Then they sold it, and the person who owns it now made some nice offices out of it. But that could have lent itself to a residence. And that, so I just think that's the kind of thinking, and that's not, it's on the same block, but it's not on Union Street, it doesn't front it. But it's part of DB zone though.
And again, there's pros and cons to all of this, but, I think of the hair cutter building on Main Street that's condemned, that particular area may be zoned residential, don't know. But if that area were developed, it seems to me housing wouldn't be a bad thing there, even on the first floor. The Moriarty property, if someone was required to build retail storefronts on the first floor, horrible place to get in and out of with a car, horrible place during the day. You cannot make a right-hand turn in there from Main Street.
You can, but it's.
You're actually going back against the traffic. I don't know that you can. If you're coming down Main Street, you cannot make a right-hand turn into the Moriarty property. You've got to be coming on Union Street to do that.
That's when he was there.
So
Usually a car sitting there anyhow, parked there, like a Volkswagen or something, pointing out toward you.
yeah.
It's uncomfortable to do, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that Volkswagen is a shop owner from across the street.
Really?
Yeah, well, right now,
That's
being
their
used-
parking. That's their parking.
That's parking for, he owns part of Chuck
Yeah.
Row, which is parking.
So anyway, personally, I don't think we should discourage downtown residents. I mean, right on the edges of, we have it on 2 properties already. You have the one next to the old town hall, and 2 doors down, you have the other 10-unit building. Parking's on the first floor.
I would think that, I know that people who are trained in planning, municipal planning, have some pretty strong feelings about that due to, planning, I'm not a planner, but I have noticed over the years, a lot of them, and now I'm working in Chicopee, one of the biggest challenges there is they have rezoned all along the major thoroughfares there for Business A, what they call a Business A zone. Business A zone does not allow single family or 2-family homes to do anything there. It has to be residences associated with a business. Now, there are a lot of multi-family homes there, and there are a lot of non-conforming single family lining all of those roadways. But the goal is, over time, as far as growth goes, they would prefer to see if the building comes down, it builds back to the code, to rezoning. And that's kind of guiding, where the future of your city. I'm thinking East Hampton's got a pretty small downtown as it is. I think we want more shops downtown, but we want a robust downtown. That's the goal. And putting residences on the first floor taking any shop experience, window shopping, ground level shop experience away would be probably not a good idea.
Well, I only meant it for new construction, I didn't mean
Yeah.
it for,
And doesn't this letter say it would be in the back? So
well, that's,
No,
that's,
Those are,
That's,
I mentioned that, you're right, but I mentioned an additional one, so for the example of, you could have first floor residence, front or back or all, if it was new construction,
So,
you know.
no,
I have such mixed feelings about this whole thing, as you know, and I feel residents on the first floor, I mean, this past weekend, the weekend of Cultural Chaos, we had 5 new businesses open up on Water Street, you know?
right,
And having
the likelihood of this impacting Cottage Street is potentially slim to none. But let's say, for
Yeah,
example,
no, but it's just like
Let-
another
let's
thing.
say-
Cottage Street is a third of the district that this proposal would apply to.
right, but the likelihood of it affecting the sites that Maureen's referring to are slim to none.
But I get nervous
Someone's
when you
not gonna,
start.
so someone's gonna knock that down and build resident, I don't think so. Maybe they will, sure.
There
They will.
are half a dozen single-family houses on the north side of Cottage Street.
Correct,
That if those came down,
yep.
then you could build more single-family housing there. And that's not what Cottage Street needs, in my opinion.
is it zoned residential on the other, the north side of
No,
Cottage Street?
it's not.
Yeah,
It's zoned,
those are
it's zoned,
non-conforming.
Yeah.
DB until, the street over.
Right, okay.
Maple Street?
Maple Street's behind it.
But however, I mean, again, you get back to the parking situation, if you knock, any of those houses get knocked down and you do business and possibly building up at least another floor that's gonna be resident, or 3 floors, whatever, where's the parking gonna be?
Right now, there's no parking requirement for buildings that were built before 1972, which encourages reuse rather than
Right.
new construction. But it still happens.
So I think either example is gonna have a minimal impact, in all honesty, for a different reason. Like even the proposal as I written is gonna be hard, because technically, that might, require a sprinkler system. And that might make the whole idea unfeasible. You know, the person might just say, well, I'll keep it office, as opposed to, you know, because the code is, you know, is clear and vague at the same time. 1 and 2 families are exempt from fire sprinklers. 3 or more families needs fire sprinklers. Commercial, 7,500 square feet or less, no sprinklers, 7,500 square feet or more, that's very clear. However, in buildings that have 1 unit and have office, it's interpretation.
Well, you have to, it has to meet the requirements for the most stringent mixed use. So in this case, if you have offices downstairs, residential units, well, you know, offices are pretty, everybody's supposed to be awake, it's business
Yeah.
hour, there, no sprinklers required, there's one of the least hazardous uses,
I know, but
be used. Whereas residential, I believe, is one of the most hazardous because you have no access to what's going on inside the homes. People burn candles, I mean, look at all the fires most of them.
Do you think you get 2-hour fire separation between
That's right.
uses?
Yep, yeah, as long as you separate it out, probably one of the biggest challenges in, you know, reuse of a structure is outfitting it. You change the occupancy of it, and then creating all those separations, that's really difficult. If you're building new, it's not that hard.
right, that's what I'm getting at. So, you know, just because we make it, I don't think you're gonna see a slew. It's gonna be a case-by-case thing.
Yeah, this is true, yeah.
Personally, I just would not want to incentivize anything that's going to encourage the atmosphere of our downtown to become a residential street. I mean, we have, you know, 95% of the community is residential, and the upper floors of the downtown can be residential. So it seems like you have this atmosphere that we're trying to create of, the feel of being in a downtown is taken away when you can't go into a storefront, and
Yeah.
every other storefront is a.
The other thing
is a-
too-
I would
There's
agree
another-
with you if it was a storefront already,
There's another.
but it's not a storefront today, and the ones I
But what about,
referenced are a storefront.
what's the vision for the future?
The other thing too is as once
I don't know,
that starts to
dilapidated
happen.
buildings downtown, I guess, you keep the zoning the way it is, fine, keep going, let the buildings fall down. These, I don't see Moriarty, I don't see Gall, I don't see anybody take, there's no incentive for them to do anything. Let the properties continue to deteriorate. The red X has failed, is now faded beyond recognition on a condemned building on Main Street. So just keep letting them fall down and do the thing, that's fine, leave it the way it is, I don't care, that's fine, leave it the way it is. Next subject. I mean, seriously, if you want it, because
But that wasn't the discussion talking about the possibility of also units in the back, like stores?
Well, I think we're in consensus on,
Yeah.
the draft is written, I think we have consensus. I think
Yeah.
we don't,
New
is
construction.
when I added the additional, and I was thinking about adding it because I don't wanna send a letter every 2 weeks. I said,
Sure.
You
Well,
know,
here's another thing to consider too, if you have a new construction and and it becomes residential and you've got storefront, residential, storefront. Now you've got a break in the visual, it matters to have a continuum
But you gotta
of
take a look at
visual
that.
things
Okay,
to
but
keep
you-
people entertained from one end of the street to the
But
other.
you gotta
Because
take
I
that.
have that in another community where there's
That's not
a
working.
gate, there's a hole,
No, but my
and
point is, you're not,
people are not, their attention is so.
you're not changing anything. You've got, we're talking about properties that are already there and not retail today. So we're gonna force it to become retail and force more empty storefronts on Union Street. So if you look at her in Scurry, if you look at the Moriarty building, if you look at the barber shop, those are not,
But the potential can be for any building that burns down.
Sure.
Any
Yeah.
storefront that burns down, now
Yeah.
we have the opportunity, this new construction, we can put housing on the first floor.
it's an option, yeah.
Right, so, I'm gonna take that option, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that for the next whatever former storefronts that might have been there.
Yeah.
If a
Right,
place
now you
burns
have a
down,
gap,
or-
people when they're walking downtown, it matters.
If this
that
zoning were
they're-
to change, it would allow them to replace it with residential on the first floor.
We're not talking about taking
Oh, I see what
existing
you're saying, yeah.
no, first floor residents and making them change to commercial.
No,
No.
the current zoning states that in the downtown business district, you cannot have first floor, you cannot have ground floor residential. Or street level residential, is what the current zoning says.
but there are a
The-
few
the existing- The
non-conforming.
existing residential uses are non-conforming uses. When those uses are, if those uses are ever switched to an office or a storefront, it can never go back to the residential. But that's the property owner's choice to make that conversion, and they lose that grandfather status.
I'm confused, how is Curry still able to be standing?
Well,
Is it because he's paying his taxes?
Sure.
Yeah.
And the building's
But if the
been
building's
secure.
condemned,
But it's secure, boarded up, that's all you need to
Is
do.
Moriarty's building condemned? It should be.
which is the Moriarty?
No, it's not.
Pardon?
Which is the Moriarty building?
The one in the corner
Right on the
of,
curve.
Next to Galaxy.
Next to Big East.
between Union, on Union and
Oh,
Main,
yeah, yeah,
one of the
yeah,
big U's in front of it.
Yeah, pay your taxes and secure the building. The city can take no action.
Right. I mean, the thing, we have property owners like this, it's common, or not common, but in every city, there are property owners who pay their taxes, they're waiting for the market to become better. You see this in Northampton, there's property owners, I won't name them, but there are property owners who own half the downtown and refuse to fix things up, even though the downtown could support it, you know, and so just because, personally, I don't see the residential first floor, not having residential on the first floor as being a significant barrier
I don't think
to any of the people that are not rebuilding their structures. I think there are other things going on.
Of course it's a barrier. You just want to create more empty storefronts. If I need that building to cash flow to support the debt, and I'm going to create 2 empty storefronts on the first floor, I may not cut it. So why build 2 empty storefronts on the first floor if the 4 apartments or 2 apartments upstairs? All I'm suggesting is a change to incentivize improvement. If you can't leave it the way it is, I'm okay with that. But my point is, whether you leave it the way it is or whether you make this change, you're not affecting any storefronts, because they're not existing storefronts today. Now, sure, could we have a fire? Could we get struck by lightning? Could a meteor strike? Sure, all those things could happen to allow somebody to put it in where it was before. But right now, with all else being equal, no one can change an existing storefront downtown.
The way zoning works is it always goes forward. It's never retroactive. Every zoning change that's been in the city has been a forward-looking zoning change.
This is pretty forward-looking.
So when the R15 was changed to R40, we didn't make everyone who already built, single-family homes on 15,000 square foot lots, demolish every 2 out of 3 and combine the lots together to make them bigger.
Why isn't this forward-looking?
No, I'm saying it only applies going forward.
Right.
Zoning never applies to.
I guess I'm not sure where that's coming from, that's ties in.
She moves forward in terms of time,
Right.
not necessarily forward in terms of.
It
So
seems to be
any
forward moving by
any construction
plan.
is going to be new construction.
Oh, correct, but without a fire, or some major catastrophe downtown, your ability to do new construction is fairly limited, unless you wanna demolish a very good building and put up, which probably doesn't work financially either. For someone to knock down an existing building on Cottage Street in the storefront section to build apartments is not economically feasible. I'm
Well,
just guessing.
let's take the shopping plaza on Union Street.
Yep.
I don't know the quality of those buildings, but, it's possible that, buildings are built in 1950s and 60s that weren't designed for a short lifespan. Those are gonna come down. Would it make sense to have single-family residential or even just townhouses all up and down that part of the street?
You can make that assumption and give that example, but that's just pie in the sky. I don't know that those buildings are gonna come down. Those buildings could be there longer than we're all here. So we can all take the worst case examples, fires, building coming up. You can all take, all I'm saying is you either let the build, because the owner doesn't have any incentive to do anything with the property based on current zoning, leave it the way it is, or try to offer some sort of incentive. Their incentive apparently is housing on the first floor to make it cash flow, because I can rent those out tomorrow.
Well,
Look at.
Well, here's the thing,
Let's say
though,
this
if
is
we
the-
do that,
Let me just say, Nick, without,
Yeah, you cut me off twice already, so if we were to do that,
Nick,
okay,
No.
if we were to do that,
Go on.
so,
Okay. She stopped.
Right.
I'll give you one example. Nick just put 7 units on the corner of Main Street in Pleasant, 7 units, probably renting for an average of $1,200 to $1,400 a month, rented them up as fast as they could become available. They're all rented. So when I'm talking about cash flow for a business owner, I have a choice of empty storefronts, or I have a choice of 2 units that are gonna cash flow
but our
$2,500
empty
a month.
storefronts, we just had 5 fill in this weekend, so 2 weekends ago.
This zoning
Okay.
won't affect that.
Well,
So,
remember,
but
there were
over
some musical
time-
chairs.
But that's the
Well,
nature
wait,
of,
yeah, but
and over
but you
time-
can't say it's a net
so
fire.
for instance, we go ahead and do that, right? Say there's this massive fire, and now we can all have, everyone can have residential on the first floor, or even half, or a quarter. Look, now you have no more downtown, where are they gonna go? What are they gonna do? Go to Northampton?
Northampton.
Yeah. Which is what we don't want.
Well, maybe so. I was not envisioning large-scale development. So maybe if it's, I don't see it gaining any legs, but if it gained a little bit of legs, it could be written
Well, now it's,
for smaller parcels. I mean, I wasn't thinking of like, what's the Union Street Plaza? I was not thinking of that of any means, because I'm not, obviously, if that came down, I don't know what, I'm guessing you could probably put with first floor residences, you could probably get 22 or 28, or just say 30, as opposed to having 20 with first floor. I wasn't thinking of that. I mean, I don't want large scale replacement. I was thinking more like
but
the
I
small
guess
little
like,
ones.
right, but moving forward on something that we intend to perhaps be a small percentage, verbiage and language matters, because it could very easily become what you're not talking about.
But it's interesting how history repeats itself. So back in, whenever those were converted on Cottage Street, early 70s, late 60s,
And now
they
they're
were,
back to residential.
they were converted for a reason,
But
because
now-
they couldn't rent them. So they said, I've got to cash flow this somehow, so I'll make them apartments.
But more recently, since that, I've lived here for a long time now, and I know maybe it's moving too slowly for some people, but I've seen a lot of improvements in downtown East Hampton, people sinking a lot of money into enterprises and even buildings. The little one that the Manhattan Cafe used to be in,
Yeah.
somebody bought that, sank a bunch of money into that, and it's been a very successful hair place. What about the Tandem Bagel?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that was like, so if businesses, I mean, that was a huge investment
Big round one.
on their part, you know?
Yeah, and
They
that's
can't-
a good point, there's two buildings, on either, there was that building, 2 Holyoke Street, and the one, I think it's like 115 Main Street, both were zoned residential, and within the last 2 years, petitioned city council to be included into the downtown business district.
And
I
now
just
they
feel
fill
like
up
we're
the
asking the wrong
businesses.
question.
Okay, well, let me,
Well, especially since you've got those schools possibly coming online that are gonna add residents in town, and if
Well, we don't
we,
know.
we don't know that, but if it went in that direction and it was some elderly housing in there, they're gonna wanna walk to things, so it encourages business.
Right.
You know, they've got more people that are wanting, and that's the trend anyways,
so,
to be in a downtown area, to live and be able to buy things.
I mean, my sort of, if the concern is that there are not enough people living downtown, then then why not raise the height limits, encourage people to build up, raise the, change.
Well,
encourage-
Is that the
What's the
problem,
limit
is
now?
not
Is
living
it-
downtown?
I don't know what the
I
problem
think
is.
it's not a
so
problem
I'm
with
encouraging
not living
residents.
downtown, it's that if you encourage, go right back to what Carol just said, if you encourage people to live downtown, you have a natural feeder for your businesses.
But we have 15
And people-
cottage, I mean, that's still, do they still have empty units?
Yeah, that's what I would, yeah.
So where's all the clamor for new, I mean, they got
Well-
spaces still, right?
no, they're full, but,
They are?
yeah, but,
And the Keystone building is practically filled up as well.
Yeah.
well, I think,
No
I don't
shortage
wanna
of
go-
people that are looking for,
I don't wanna go round and round for 2 reasons. I mean, I think right now, I'll kind of table my suggestion, the hurry-scurry model, and then I can just talk about, my draft, which I know I have to be more specific in the DB zone. But I understood that we had some consensus for work, live, with the residents being in the back.
I think that's.
So
Yeah.
if anybody has any suggestions for the draft, I'd be happy to take them.
It would be helpful to, speaking to one of the things you brought up earlier about, should it just be kind of like, is it good to be more vague and fill in things as it goes through hearings, or to be specific? I think that it should be specific enough to allow for things to kind of change a little bit to adjust.
Well, do you think I'm specific enough the way I wrote it, or do you think I need to add some more?
I would like to see some clarification with front rear, like how much is front, like.
Yeah,
That's right.
percentage,
Like,
yeah.
is, I mean,
Ratio.
what I think,
Ratio.
it's,
Well, the reason why I
I
didn't,
would say that
that's fine.
ratios are
The reason why I
difficult,
didn't
but
was,
my-
I did it on purpose, I don't mind doing it. I thought that was maybe for the ordinance committee to flush out,
right. I guess my thought
but I
is.
could still 64
Sure.
or
Well,
40.
you could do 64, you could do percentages, and it's gonna vary, but I would say that to encourage consistent application and consistent, it's just the front 10 feet or the front 15 feet or of each building, so like, that it doesn't matter how wide, or, so that there's always enough front for an office or
Storefront.
storefront or
Yeah.
whatever it
So
is.
that's where
It
it
doesn't all
comes in.
become, it's not just like a sliver in the front.
Yeah, it's not- it's not-
So it becomes a faux thing.
Right.
It's not just,
Keep in
it's
mind, we're
not,
not-
yeah.
We're not decision makers on this, all we're doing is making.
No, but if we're creating the draft.
Well,
the
Right.
we
ordinance-
own it to a point,
So
at some
we need
point,
to-
he gets away from us, but we should, I guess,
The
dictate as long
planning
as
board
we're.
has, the planning board has a lot on their agenda, and so does the finance, the ordinance subcommittee, and so if the language is not clear enough, that they're not sure what to, they won't know how to take it further and run with it unless they get something that is specifics.
I have a question regarding, so we submit this. This is not anything that's necessarily on the planning and zoning's radar.
We're trying,
Right, so we're gonna initiate
Yeah.
an initiative. So don't we, by doing so, now have an obligation to walk through that whole process and be more involved as opposed to just sitting here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Go to meetings.
Right.
Yeah, we have to shepherd him, we have to, I mean, you know, we're not just gonna like throw spaghetti against the wall, we have to
Right, that's what
try,
I'm
you
getting
know,
at.
try to bring it home. I mean,
Right.
you know, if the first meeting, they say, thanks, but you're all wet, well, that's the end of it. But if they say, okay, we have something we can work with, we keep having a dialogue, and there'll be input from various people.
So oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I was just, my point is that as a group, as a committee, then,
Well,
it's not
then,
just one person showing up for these other.
well, right, so I can, the essence, I think, is fine, but I think I can, make it, better. And then, I'll probably rely on Jamie and Jessica a little bit, just for the, language, and, you know, after that, I mean, I don't wanna get too crazy. I don't write, when I write short as it is. No, I mean, it's, you know, because I do think, you know, I think your point is right. Give them enough to work with, and that we have some ownership over it, and then that's it. Because in the public process, I don't wanna say all bets
So
are
what
off.
is, so we have this idea, but some things that occur to me, I don't,
Yeah,
just maybe to start off, maybe thinking on how we could draft something. The goal would be to create environments in which people starting up a business or running a business can live on the premises behind, but in my thinking, it's not like gonna be like a 5-bedroom suite behind it. You know, this is like for startup kind of things so that's where it comes like ratio, and perhaps maybe just like the accessory apartments in residential zones, there's a cap on the size. So no matter what the space, maybe there would be a cap or certain numbers of bedrooms or something like that. I mean,
Yeah, you could say like, up to, you know, and the home occupation ordinance says up to 1/3 of the existing gross square footage of that, for that can be used for a business, that way it maintains a subordinate piece.
Subordinate.
So it's subordinate to the housing component, so
so
going
isn't
on what
even
you're
the-
saying, it's that,
so we're
saying
just saying we do
that
the opposite.
up to 1/3, but no more than.
800 feet, is it in
800 is for the accessory apartment.
that's right, yeah, that's, I'm kind of thinking the same kind of concepts here.
Yeah, so,
up
I mean,
to
800
cap,
square
so.
feet is large enough for a 2-bedroom.
Bedrooms, yes.
And probably,
Even
probably
3
small,
small.
you could probably fit 3.
Yep.
So, you know, and I don't know what the size of those downtown units
Well,
are
I
on the
can,
first floor,
but I know, I don't know, I know what you're saying, and I would, you know, myself, I was thinking of a good 1-bedroom, you know, a good size for a 1-bedroom is around 700 square feet. So I was thinking maybe a cap of 750. The idea is, you know,
Right, yeah,
you know, you could have 3 people living in it maybe. I mean, you know, a couple with a child.
Sure.
I don't wanna get into bedrooms per se,
sure.
but, you know,
But then there would be some floor plan kind of challenges, like
Oh,
any
yeah.
residential unit has to have 2 means of egress.
well, you could have curb plans.
And they can't be through, I'm thinking, unless it's, you know, so some work has to go into figuring that out so it complies with building code, so.
Well,
we draft
But if it's
something.
owner occupied,
well, that's
Yeah.
not the zoning issue.
Well, to be honest with you,
Right.
Building, I'm sorry,
Building.
building code.
Building code.
I'm sorry,
it's,
yeah.
you know, I'll be honest with you, that's why I think that the building code, if the zoning was approved, the challenge is gonna be the building code.
But that probably won't be an issue on new construction, because they can construct it in a way that allows for the multiple.
Well, even some of the stuff that's in place, some of the older structures, for instance, you can do, you can use a chart, there's like appendices to all kinds of code. There's like an archaic material kind of comparison list, so if you're trying to achieve a 2-hour separation, and you have lath and plaster that's intact of a certain thickness, and you can demonstrate that, well, that's acceptable. You don't have to go to extremes to try to, you know, bring it up with modern materials. You have, it's like many pages of all of the different combinations of archaic materials that are already in the building that comply with, can be accepted on existing structures as complying with the intent of separation.
So-
There's ways, and a lot of these in East Hampton, you know, have these things in place
But
already.
you would still need the two egresses. And
Yeah.
You still need
in an
to.
older building,
But I am gonna add
you're
one-
punching a hole in the wall to get that second egress.
One thing I am gonna add, in my language, I wrote in existing, so now though, I'm gonna change it to an existing or new construction. Since we're only talking about work,
Or just-
live.
Or just say in first
Right.
floor.
Okay,
And then
yeah, in first floor.
And that was my only point about the second egress, is that if someone was building this with that in mind, they could construct it, designed it in a way that built that second egress in, so it wouldn't look like punching a hole through a wall kind of thing.
Okay, so then I'll do that for the next meeting. And I'll get the draft out ahead of time. And hopefully, we'll mark it up in that meeting and then we'll go from there. Good. That's fine. And number 6, I wrote new draft letter this time. And I met with Jessica 2 weeks ago regarding this and some other stuff. She had some, she heard from Jamie and she just wanted to touch base. But I'm not gonna speak for her, but I'm just gonna report, part of our conversation is that she would like to revamp the zoning. And she asked my opinion, and my opinion is, I don't mind revamping the zoning at all, but I didn't want anything to do, not personally, but I don't think we need a master plan process. And she agreed. No, she agreed. What she really wants to do is make, I really don't want to speak for her, but kind of, if if I'm saying something wrong, please feel free.
I actually didn't hear the details of your meeting.
Well, no, okay, but I know you know how you must know how she feels on the zoning. Each section, she wanted to be a little bit more cohesive and consistent, so like, she liked to get rid of the table of uses. Right now, the way our zoning is set up, we have a table of uses, then you go to the districts. She would like to go to each district and have a table of uses within that district. So if you're in a downtown business, you only have to go to that chapter. That's how she's thinking about revamping it. So whatever conceivable is that is a valid potential in downtown business that can be humanly reasonably thought about would be there. You wouldn't have to go Appendix A or section reference this, and and then she's thinking about maybe there's some funding she might have available and get a consultant to approach this. That's her business. We could obviously support that. How Farm does that. I myself don't see why you can't just take a chapter and work on it. But that's not up to me by any means. That's just opinion. So that's all I wanted to say. That she's thinking about. She said that the Mills project has come to an end, which would take up a lot of time. Ferry Street's out on the radar, but it comes and goes. And other than that, I just stressed upon my personal opinion that the way things are changing, you can't be static anymore. Like even some people I've heard, I heard today, but I heard before today too, that some people think the Royal Mall is not viable. You say to yourself,
I heard it, and we heard the same NPR I did.
you say to yourself, well, because it's the Crossroads, it being a Class B mall, it is successful. But then, then you start, and I follow the stuff of the malls, in other areas, malls are going medical, they're being repurposed in all different ways. And I'm just trying to think that, along those lines, the other thing is that, what Mo mentioned earlier, we have 5 new businesses on Cottage Street. Well, I'm going to take the line that that's good. However, one of them I don't really want there. Well, the tax line. Everything they did is perfectly legal, it's perfectly fine, it's suitable. But that's not what we're thinking about in our entertainment district, so to speak, you know what I
Because they
mean?
were pre-existing.
I mean, now,
They just moved.
right, no, yeah, but they bought it, so it's there. So, yeah, now, on the other hand, my thinking, you can throw a hole in my thinking and say, well, wait a minute, they're active during the day, and some businesses are active at night. It's good to have a mixture. So, you know, maybe,
Movie theater.
yeah. But my point in mentioning that is, there's no way in heck we would ever think about trying to regulate that.
You can't.
No, we wouldn't. We just wouldn't,
Right.
you know, because that'd be inappropriate, you know.
Well, and you can't tell who's gonna sell to who and what's gonna
Right.
rent to who.
Right.
But we do have limited use controls. We
Right.
don't allow manufacturing, nuisance type manufacturing.
It is what it is, Dave. But
Yeah.
I remember years ago with Walter, when we were doing our,
Oh, Walter Belsky.
when we did our visioning process with Walter, he had identified a multiple number of businesses, great businesses, been in East Hampton for a long time, but in a perfect world wouldn't be on your ground floor.
No.
Because there's no exchange of goods.
Right.
There's simply a service, and your
Yes.
service businesses should really be on the second floor.
That's exactly
And
right.
that would come into that category. You
Yeah.
can't restrict it necessarily, but.
What about accessibility?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
These services can roll in off the sidewalk into a ground floor service business, whereas if the service businesses were all located on second floors, now you're talking about massive expense to put in elevators and stuff.
Just pass along what Walter brought up in the visioning process, that
I
in a
don't
perfect
disagree
world,
with
you,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have in Northampton though, there's a lot of services in the second and third
Well,
floor.
if you have.
How accessible they are, I don't know.
Buildings
They're
that
not,
are
no,
open.
I've got a friend who's got a beauty parlor and she has losing people because they can't walk up the steep stairs anymore.
Right,
She's been
right.
looking for a place for first floor,
Yeah.
too expensive, you know.
Well, a lot of
everything.
services in downtown Northampton are in buildings.
But
But
Well,
guess
I almost got her to buy the, Union Street, she didn't look at that.
if the Cottage Street were with all due
Okay,
respect to
I just wanted to, you know.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to mention that, you know, Jessica's thinking, the planning department's thinking about looking at the zoning. You know, I'm sure that, I don't know when, but I'm sure there'll be some more discussion, you know, I'm sure we'll be involved, and, you know. we'll
But as
support-
far as something you said about, you see that it would be okay to do it a zone at a time.
I do.
For instance, and I agree, I think that in like how you say, where people come into town, you know, business districts especially.
Right.
I mean, to bring up probably I hope people have gotten over this by now, but when the sign ordinance talks, I actually did organize all the sign uses per zone to help, you know, understand like what can
Yeah.
go where. And it wasn't that hard to really go through the zoning ordinance and pull out, if somebody comes into town and
Right.
wants to do something downtown business district, to have a couple pages on zoning, I don't know how many, maybe 3. You have general requirements in any zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
There's gonna be general requirements that go across the board everywhere. But to actually isolate all of those things that could possibly come into play just in a DB district or any district, I think would be helpful in the short term, because I think a reorganization of the entire zoning ordinance would be a long haul project.
But I think once you did the first chapter, and I mean the first chapter, not necessarily chronological, you picked a chapter, even if it was, say, the least benign, R80, residential,
Yeah.
you have your template how to proceed on the rest of them.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
and you would,
Right, yeah.
obviously, and I think things would follow in course. Once you did downtown business, and then neighborhood business is gonna have its own chapter, it's gonna be, the characteristics that make neighborhood business will be in that chapter, and I think it'll just follow, it'll evolve naturally. But we'll see. I mean, the other reason why I like doing that is, I'm not a big fan of Pioneer Valley Planning Commission anymore they're fine and they're wonderful and they're professional, but from the point of view is, sometimes they've gotten away from what works in one town might not work in another town, and I just like to see a little bit more flavor. You know, but it is what it is. They're the natural go-to people, and they have the expertise. I'm gonna skip over number 7. Anything on regarding number 8, Dave?
No,
Okay.
next time, I'll have something.
Okay, very good.
So I've been getting some replies from some people I've reached out to for information and stuff.
Okay.
It's not together yet.
And then, Pasquina didn't make it,
She sent me a text if you want, I can read it to you guys.
if you like.
She says,
Okay, go ahead.
no. Cultural Chaos was a great success. We had a record number of, record turnout, more than 10,000 people. I'm sorry that she couldn't make it tonight.
Oh, no, that's good, I was gonna ask.
I'm sorry, yes, there was something that happened on Cultural Chaos that day that needs to be addressed for next time. And
Okay, but.
I was right there on the front line when a gust of wind came and lifted up 2 of the tents, about 10 feet in the air, flipped them over, and then they came down.
Yeah.
And the
Oh,
guy
I wasn't
that I
aware of
was
that.
talking to kind of bruised his arm. We both caught these things or tried to, first it was like kind of running, and then turning around and still coming at you, and then we
Yeah,
kind
'cause
of
none
got
of them were-
control of it. But whoever set up, I mean, if there needs to be more attention paid to putting some ballast on these things before.
There was a recap meeting this morning.
Okay.
I wasn't there, but I did get the minutes, so I will look at them to see if that was addressed.
Yeah.
My hunch is that it was.
I know when Northampton used to do the taste in the back parking lot, they used water barrels. So they had the big blue barrels full of water and they would strap it to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
but
are-
these were individual, unfortunately, because I was helping setting up a lot of those things, and they were just, little pop-up tents,
Yeah,
10
these
by
were,
10
one of
footers.
these I think was
Was it
set
bigger
up by
one?
the tent, by this,
Oh. Because up on Cotty Street, they were all.
Well, you know how these things go, they 8 out of 10
This was a-
times, people set them up and they're there, but then the gust of wind comes.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost my gazebo off my deck in a microburst, I mean, it flew, my gazebo was metal. I mean, but it was not bolted down, but it was, it is what it is, but we're talking about an event, you have to be aware of safety, obviously, But, I heard the rumor today that they're gonna have real bulls next year. Just 5 or 6.
That was the most.
But it was
thing.
done for half the
I
money
missed the bulls.
that they
What
spent
was that?
last
Oh,
year,
so
too.
cool.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, they had a much
It was
smaller
so-
budget.
it
What
was-
was
they
it,
were
like, I think it was an
inflatable
$8,000 budget
puppets.
compared to 15.
There were people inside these puppet inflatable bulls, and
Yes.
they were running, and they had the folks, the runners,
The
they have the
runners,
red.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
Eyes
a,
and the
it's the
white-
kind of thing where.
Oh my
It's
God.
on a Facebook video somewhere.
It was,
Yeah, there
East
is.
Hampton Media.
Yeah.
East Hampton Media's got it, yeah.
So good, it was so clever,
Oh.
very cute.
And the last thing I'm just gonna
Kudos.
mention, before
Nicely
I,
I missed it.
It was
before I
nicely
talk about
done.
the next meeting is, I don't, did you guys get my email yesterday about with the housing study?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cause my email was, and then, and I had that little quote there from a different article. The article was a long, I thought, boring article about CEOs, the changing nature of CEOs from the
Yeah.
70s, 80s to now. But I thought that was just a little bit enlightening that some of the big successful companies have so much less employees than in our heyday of
Mhm.
manufacturing and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a trend that is I don't know if it's bad, but it's tough for people to figure out what they want to do.
Well, also the ratio of net earnings for CEOs is far, it's way beyond what it was in ratio to
Yes.
employees.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, and I have a problem with that because no, we have
I do
problems.
have a problem with it.
Well, no, but like a lot of smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, family businesses, they take their excess profits and it usually goes in to the business in one way or another. Like even when Rex Tillerson, when he was bought out to become Secretary of State, getting a check for $180 million. That's a shit.
Really?
I mean,
Second delay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a
these
bit
things
much.
are not, live at all.
No, really.
Yeah.
So,
No, they're not,
Yeah.
but they won't be edited as far as I know.
yeah, but, we can go on, but, now, in my agenda, I mentioned a meeting for next, July 18th is the regular,
Meeting time?
yeah. My only question is everybody gonna be around? If
I'll
not,
be around.
okay,
Yeah.
then we'll keep it,
Not
then,
the
that's
week
fine.
I think I saw something late this afternoon, there may be the forum for the new school, maybe that night. Now, we're usually out of here by that time,
Yeah.
but I think it's not scheduled till 7 o'clock. I
Okay,
saw some late emails rolling around.
okay. Okay, very good, so we'll leave it the way it is.
I won't be here, but that doesn't.
Well, have fun, wherever the hell you are, and then,
You don't count, you said.
Right, I don't, so it doesn't affect you.
okay, no, but,
Good, it affects us deeply.
next meeting, there'll be a different climate,
I'm not gonna
and
be
you'll
here.
see why at that meeting.
I won't be there
What?
There'll be a different climate
You won't be
to the
here.
meeting.
Why?
for the next
But
meeting.
you won't, it'll be July. And there's always new news in July.
Why? What's going on?
Nothing, it's about to July.
It'll be hotter.
Oh, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me.
No, you won't.